prehistoric monster the Japanese call Godzilla has just walked out of Tokyo Bay. He's as tall as a 30-story building. And now he's making his way toward the city's main line of defense.
In 1956, American audiences witnessed something extraordinary, a giant radioactive monster destroying Tokyo. But here's the twist. Nearly a third of what they watched never happened in the original film. This wasn't just an American release of a Japanese classic. This was cinema's most audacious magic trick, a complete reimagining that fooled the world for decades. These are 20 facts that prove the Godzilla you grew up watching was actually two movies pretending to be one. Fact 1, the iconic American recut. Let's start with the big picture. When American audiences lined up to see Godzilla King of the Monsters in 1956, they weren't watching a translated Japanese film. They were watching something far stranger. 2 years earlier, Toho Studios released Godzilla, a dark, haunting meditation on nuclear devastation that shook Japanese audiences to their core. It was raw. It was political. It was unmistakably about Hiroshima and Nagasaki. American distributors looked at this film and said, "We can't sell this," so they didn't just dub it. They reconstructed it from the ground up, inserting an entirely new American protagonist into the narrative. Raymond Burr became Steve Martin, a reporter caught in the chaos, witnessing Godzilla's rampage firsthand. Fact 2. Filmed without Godzilla present. Here's where things get truly bizarre. Raymond Burr shot every single one of his scenes in a Los Angeles studio. No Japanese actors, no Godzilla suit, no miniature cities burning in the background. He stood in empty rooms, stared at blank walls, and delivered lines to absolutely nothing. His shocked reactions to the monster? Pure imagination. His conversations with Japanese officials? Filmed months after the original movie wrapped, with body doubles and clever camera angles creating the illusion of interaction. The entire American production took about 1 week. Burr wandered through fabricated hospital rooms and makeshift news offices, trusting that editors would somehow make it all connect. And incredibly, they did. For decades, audiences believed Burr was actually in Tokyo during the filming. He never left California. Fact 3. Burr had only 1 day of prep. Raymond Burr received the script on a Monday. By Tuesday, he was on set filming. There were no rehearsals, no table reads, no time to study the original Japanese film. The producers handed him pages, pointed at marks on the floor, and told him to react to an invisible 50-meter-tall monster. Burr, ever the professional, improvised his way through reaction shots, piecing together a performance based on fragmentary descriptions shouted by the director between takes. He later admitted he had no idea what the final film would look like. He just trusted that somehow, somewhere, editors would make his isolated performance fit into a larger narrative. This wasn't method acting. This was filmmaking roulette. Fact 4. A completely new storyline. The American version contains approximately 21 minutes of footage that never appeared in the Japanese original. That's not just padding. That's a substantial rewrite. Entire scenes were manufactured from scratch. Hospital corridors where Burr interviews survivors. News briefings where military officials explain the crisis. Philosophical conversations about mankind's relationship with nature. None of it existed in Godzilla. The editors didn't just add an American character, they built a parallel storyline, intercutting Burr's journey with footage from the Japanese film, creating something that felt like a unified narrative. It was cinema alchemy, turning one movie into another while keeping the original recognizable. Film historians now call this one of the earliest examples of a hybrid edit. Hollywood would repeat this trick countless times in the decades that followed, but in 1956, this was revolutionary territory, and audiences had no idea they were watching a Frankenstein's monster of filmmaking. Fact 5. Godzilla's roar was recreated. The sound team faced a unique problem. They had Godzilla's roar from the Japanese film, but it didn't quite fit the American version's audio mix. So they got creative. They took the original roar, created by composer Akira Ifukube, rubbing a leather glove across a double bass string, and completely reworked it. They boosted the bass frequencies, added reverb, layered in additional sound effects. The result? A roar that sounded similar but distinctly different. Meanwhile, they altered dozens of other sound effects. Explosions were punched up. Screams were rebalanced. The entire soundscape was Americanized to match Hollywood standards of the era. When you watch both versions back to back, the sonic difference is striking. But here's the twist. Most Americans never heard the original. So, for an entire generation, the real Godzilla roar was actually the American remix. Fact 6. The film removed anti-nuclear themes. Gojira wasn't subtle about its message. The monster was a direct metaphor for nuclear weapons, awakened and empowered by atomic testing. Scenes showing radiation victims in hospitals carried unmistakable echoes of Hiroshima. American distributors systematically removed or downplayed these elements. References to atomic bombs were softened. Graphic aftermath sequences were trimmed. Dr. Yamang's impassioned speeches about humanity's nuclear hubris were shortened. The goal wasn't censorship in the political sense, it was commercial calculation. In 1956, American audiences were being told nuclear weapons kept them safe from communism. A film suggesting atomic power might doom humanity didn't fit the cultural moment. So, the editors transformed Godzilla from a nuclear allegory into a straightforward monster movie. Thrilling, yes, but no longer a warning. The creature became entertainment rather than indictment. Fact 7. Edward Burns declined the job. Before the final team took over, producers approached Edward Burns, a respected director, who'd worked on science fiction films and Three Stooges comedies. They explained their plan: buy a Japanese monster movie, insert American footage, release it as a new film. Burns read the proposal and refused. He later said he found the whole concept dishonest, taking someone else's artistic vision and repackaging it without proper attribution or respect for the original intent. His refusal reveals something fascinating about 1950s Hollywood ethics. Some filmmakers recognized the problematic nature of these hybrid edits, even if the practice was becoming commonplace. Burns wanted no part of it. So the job went to Terry Morse, a workmanlike director-editor who specialized in B-movies and quick turnarounds. Morse had no such qualms. He saw it as a puzzle to solve, a technical challenge rather than an ethical dilemma. Fact 8. Burr's character was added to appeal to U.S. viewers. The studio's reasoning was brutally simple. American audiences in 1956 wouldn't connect with an all-Japanese cast. They needed someone who looked like them, spoke like them, thought like them. This wasn't unusual for the era. Foreign films were regularly considered too foreign for mainstream American release. The solution? Manufacture familiarity. Build a bridge character who could guide audiences through unfamiliar territory. Raymond Burr's Steve Martin became that bridge. He wasn't just a protagonist, he was a cultural translator, a white American navigating a Japanese crisis, making the story accessible to audiences who might otherwise reject it. It was Hollywood's version of training wheels. And it worked. The American cut grossed far more than anyone expected, proving, at least in Hollywood's mind, that the formula was sound. But it also meant that for decades, Americans experienced Godzilla through a filter designed to make them comfortable rather than challenged. Fact 9. A lookalike actor played all interactions. Creating the illusion of interaction between Burr and the Japanese cast required clever deception. Whenever Burr appeared to speak with someone from the original film, the editors employed body doubles. These stand-ins, hired in Los Angeles, wore similar clothing to the Japanese actors and stood with their backs to the camera. Burr would deliver his lines to the back of someone's head, and editors would splice in reaction shots from the original film. The trick worked because of careful framing, over-the-shoulder shots, strategic cutting, never showing both actors' faces simultaneously in the American footage. It's filmmaking sleight of hand, and it's remarkable how seamless it appears. Only when you know the trick can you spot the seams, the slight mismatches in lighting, the eyeline issues, the fact that Burr and the Japanese actors never quite seemed to occupy the same space, because they didn't. They were literally on different continents, filming months apart, unaware of each other's existence. Fact 10. Original scenes were cut. For violence. Gojira didn't flinch from showing destruction's human cost. There were shots of charred bodies, children crying over dead parents, hospitals overflowing with radiation victims. It was visceral and horrifying. The American cut removed much of this. Not all of it. The film still showed Tokyo in flames, still depicted civilian casualties. But the most graphic, most haunting imagery was trimmed away. Partly this was runtime management. The film needed to fit a standard American double feature slot. But it was also about marketability. American distributors wanted a monster movie, not a tragedy. They wanted audiences thrilled, not traumatized. So, they softened the edges, pulled back from the darkest moments, made Godzilla's rampage feel more like a disaster film than a meditation on mass death. The Japanese version forced viewers to confront mortality. The American version let them enjoy the spectacle. Both approaches had merit, but they resulted in fundamentally different experiences. Fact 11. The name Godzilla was an American creation. The original Japanese title, Gojira, is a portmanteau of gorilla and kujira, whale. It's evocative in Japanese but doesn't translate smoothly to English phonetics. American marketers needed something that sounded powerful, memorable, and pronounceable for English speakers. They settled on Godzilla, keeping the core sound while westernizing the spelling and pronunciation. It was a brilliant marketing choice. Godzilla sounds imposing. It's easy to say. It sticks in your memory. The name became synonymous with giant monsters worldwide, transcending its Japanese origins. But it also created a cultural disconnect. In Japan, Gojira remains the creature's true name, carrying different phonetic and cultural weight. Godzilla is the export version, the international brand. For 50 years, most Americans had no idea these were actually two different names for the same creature. The localization was so complete, it became the default reality. Fact 12. The American edit became a global template. Here's the shocking part. When Godzilla went international, many countries didn't receive the Japanese original. They received the American cut. European distributors bought the 1956 version. Latin American theaters screened Burr's edit. For decades, huge portions of the world believed Raymond Burr was an integral part of the original film. This meant that global Godzilla fandom was built on a foundation of American revisionism. The character's international identity was shaped not by Ishiro Honda's dark vision, but by Hollywood's lighter, more commercial interpretation. It wasn't until home video and later DVD releases that the original Gojira became widely accessible outside Japan. Suddenly, longtime fans discovered they'd been watching a hybrid all along. The real Godzilla was darker, slower, more thoughtful than the version they'd grown up with. Some felt betrayed. Others were fascinated. But everyone realized they'd been experiencing a cultural translation rather than the original text. Fact 13. The suit actor was never credited. Haruo Nakajima spent grueling hours inside the Godzilla suit, creating the monster's distinctive movements and personality. The rubber costume was heavy, hot, and claustrophobic. Nakajima could barely see, could barely breathe, and performed while drenched in sweat. His performance was the physical foundation of Godzilla's character. The way the monster moved, turned, destroyed, all Nakajima's choices. The American version's credits don't mention him once, not even in the cast list. The monster appeared as if by magic, a special effect rather than a performance. This erasure was typical of the era. Special effects performers were often treated as technicians rather than actors. But it's particularly striking here because Nakajima's work was so central to Godzilla's success. His movements gave the creature personality, made it feel alive rather than like an animated model. Japanese audiences knew Nakajima's name. American audiences didn't learn it for decades. Another layer of the original film's identity stripped away in translation. Fact 14. It was one of the first foreign films mass distributed in the U.S. In the 1950s, foreign films played in art houses and specialty theaters. They weren't mass-market entertainment. Hollywood dominated American screens almost completely. Godzilla, King of the Monsters, changed that equation. Despite being fundamentally a Japanese production, it was marketed and distributed like a Hollywood B-picture. It played in neighborhood theaters, drive-ins, double features across the country. The hybrid format was the key. By adding American footage, distributors could market it as a domestic production. Audiences didn't think of it as a foreign film. It had an American star, American production values, American pacing. This success opened doors. It proved that international genre films could reach mainstream American audiences if packaged correctly. In the years that followed, more Japanese monster movies received American releases, many using similar hybrid techniques. Godzilla wasn't just a monster movie success. It was a test case for globalized cinema in the pre-internet age. Fact 15. The film's success saved Toho. Toho Studios gambled everything on Gojira. The production was expensive by Japanese standards, the special effects unprecedented. If it failed, the studio faced serious financial consequences. The film succeeded in Japan, but the real windfall came from America. The licensing deal and subsequent international sales generated revenue that Toho never anticipated. Suddenly, they had a franchise. This unexpected American success guaranteed sequels. Without it, Godzilla might have remained a one-off curiosity. Instead, Toho immediately greenlit Godzilla Raids Again in 1955, then continued producing Godzilla films for decades. The irony is rich. American revisionism, which stripped away much of the original's artistic intent, also provided the financial foundation for Godzilla to become a lasting cultural icon. The very thing that changed the film's meaning also ensured its survival. Fact 16. Extra destruction scenes were removed. Building miniature cities was expensive and time-consuming. Toho's effects team spent weeks constructing elaborate Tokyo models, then meticulously destroyed them on camera. Every toppling building, every collapsing bridge represented significant labor and cost. The American cut removed several of these sequences, partly for runtime, partly because American editors felt the pacing dragged. They wanted a leaner, faster monster movie. This meant that some of the most impressive technical achievements in the original film, scenes that took days to prepare and could only be shot once, ended up on the cutting room floor. American audiences never saw them. For effects enthusiasts, this was tragic. Those sequences represented the pinnacle of 1954 practical effects work. They were primitive by modern standards, but remarkably sophisticated for their time. Fortunately, the original film was preserved, and later restorations allowed the world to see what American audiences missed. But for 20 years, those spectacular destruction sequences existed only in Japanese versions. Fact 17. Burr's lines were added to simplify plot. The original Gojira included complex political scenes, scientists debating whether to reveal dangerous technology, government officials arguing about military response, philosophical discussions about humanity's relationship with nature. American editors found these sequences too slow, too talky, too foreign, so they replaced them with Raymond Burr providing simplified narration. Burr's voiceovers explained the plot in straightforward terms. Who was doing what? Why the military was mobilizing? What the scientists hoped to achieve? It was exposition as blunt instrument, stripping away nuance in favor of clarity. This dumbing down was deliberate. American distributors assumed their audience either couldn't or wouldn't follow complex political subtext. They wanted good guys, bad monsters, simple stakes. The result was a film that moved faster, but thought less deeply. Burr's narration kept the plot accessible at the cost of the original's thematic richness. American audiences got the story but missed the meaning. Fact 18. The American cut inspired future monster movies. Godzilla, King of the Monsters, established a template. The documentary-style narration, with a reporter witnessing and explaining events, became a staple of 1950s creature features. Films like The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms were re-released with added narration mimicking Burr's approach. Later monster movies adopted the journalist in the middle of chaos framing device. Even television shows picked up on this narrative strategy. The influence extended beyond monsters. Disaster films, science fiction epics, Cold War thrillers, many borrowed elements of the Godzilla format. The embedded observer, the voiceover exposition, the human scale witnessing inhuman events. What started as a commercial compromise became a genre convention. The American Godzilla edit wasn't just a financial success, it was a stylistic innovator. It proved you could make foreign stories feel domestic through clever structural choices. Hollywood learned that lesson well. They've been applying it ever since. Fact 19. The film was once lost in Japan. While the American version dominated international markets, it was oddly difficult to see in Japan. Toho owned the original film, but not the American edit. Licensing complications meant the 1956 version rarely screened in Japanese theaters. For decades, it existed in a strange limbo, famous worldwide but invisible in the country that created the underlying film. Japanese fans heard about the American version but couldn't watch it. It became an urban legend of sorts, this parallel version of their beloved monster movie. Only with the rise of home video and later international DVD releases did Japanese audiences get easy access to the American cut. When they finally saw it, reactions were mixed. Some found it fascinating, a cultural artifact showing how their film was transformed. Others found it insulting, a bastardization of Honda's vision. But everyone agreed it was strange, this ghost version of Gojira that had haunted the world while remaining invisible at home. Fact 20. It cemented Godzilla in American pop culture. Without the 1956 American release, Godzilla might have remained culturally invisible in the United States. Foreign monster movies didn't cross the Pacific easily in that era. Even successful Japanese films rarely penetrated the American mainstream. The hybrid edit changed everything. By making Godzilla feel American enough, it allowed the character to enter American consciousness. Kids grew up watching it on television. Drive-in theaters packed audiences for revival screenings. The monster became a cultural reference point. This opened the floodgates. Subsequent Godzilla films received American releases. The character appeared in American comics, toys, cartoons. By the 1970s, Godzilla was as much an American icon as a Japanese one, recognized by millions who'd never heard of Ishiro Honda or Toho Studios. The 1956 edit was a Trojan horse. It smuggled Japanese cinema into American culture by disguising its origins, and in doing so, it made Godzilla immortal. Godzilla, King of the Monsters, proves that sometimes the greatest illusions happen off-screen. Two films became one, and nobody noticed for decades. If you enjoyed these hidden layers of monster movie history, smash that like button and subscribe for more forgotten film facts. Because the best stories are always the ones you thought you already knew.